If you like my art, it is available on a bunch of different products over at my Redbubble store. I also have a Patreon page where I post extra content, coloring pages, and cats, of course. You will save 10% if you sign up annually. I truly appreciate the support, so thank you! Hi everyone! So I have a few watercolor palettes here that I thought could be fun to try out because both of them have like a special feature to them. I actually got these in different scroller boxes that I never got around making unboxing videos for, but I feel like they're just too interesting to not make a video of, so here we are. They're both from Derwent. I don't remember if this one came with a packaging or not, but I haven't tried any of them. I might have swatched this one, but I haven't really made any art with them or anything, so let's do that today. Anyway, let's check them out. So we have this set that contains the Derwent Inktense paints, and I think I have tried out different Inktense products before in shape of crayons and pencils, but never watercolor pans. And just as the name suggests, these paints have ink-like qualities, which means that once they dries on the paper, they will become permanent and they can be painted over without dissolving. So it is basically ink, but in shape of watercolor pans. That is what I think it is anyway when reading about them. I haven't tried them before, so I'm super curious to test them out. But we got this super cute little set with a travel paintbrush, and we got the swatches, a quite decent mixing area. And these are the colors that are included. This dark plum, it looks delicious, but of course I'm gonna swatch them myself too. The paint pan is rattling around in there. Wow, that is pigmented. So here they are, and wow, these are pigmented. They also looks quite opaque. And when painting with them a little thicker, they got a very creamy consistency to them. Yeah, they look so gorgeous. And then we have this set of the Derwent Graphitint paints. It is basically colored graphite paints, and I think these are quite similar to the liquid pencil paints that I tried in another scroller box a little while ago. I think the main difference is that these are paint pans and the other ones were tubes. So the box is just the same as the other one. Oh, look at those pretty colors. Here we have the paint pans, and I'm not sure if it shows up on camera, but they are all shiny from the graphite, almost a little metallic like. It is hard to believe that you get these colors from these pans. They look very desaturated and a little muddy, while the swatches look so colorful and gorgeous. I had to label them so I could tell them apart without having to open them each time. Wow, these are definitely different. They have the same creamy consistency as the Inktense paints, but you can clearly tell that the graphite in the paint is giving it a very muted tone, which I love. It do remind me of these paints that I tried out a while ago that were mixed with Sumi ink, so they got this really muted tone. I really like this bottom row with all the purples and the reds and blues. I am curious though if I can erase the paint since it is graphite, but it is graphite mixed with paint, so I assume it is only the graphite that would be erased and not the paints, but I'm not entirely sure of what the purpose is having paints mixed with graphite, but it certainly gives it a very nice and interesting look though. But yeah, I'm gonna play around with these paints for a bit, and then I'm gonna try to make some actual art using them, so yeah, let's do that. Before starting, I wanted to do a few tests with the paints. First, the Graphitints, they are smudgy since they contain graphite, of course, so that is something to keep in mind. Second, how erasable are they? Pretty dang erasable, I have to say. I am surprised almost all the paint is gone. I tested with a more colorful color too, and yeah, it is just as erasable. I tried lifting up the remaining paint with some water, but it seems like the rest is stuck on there. For the Inktense paints, are they really waterproof once they dries? And well, not really. Compared to the normal watercolors, they aren't lifting up as much, but they are still dissolving. I thought that maybe the thick paint layer was what made them lift up more easily, so I tried a lighter wash too, and yeah, they are still lifting up, but not as much, I don't think. I have to rub quite a bit to dissolve the paint, so maybe they are a little more waterproof anyway. I also tested layering and mixing the Graphitint and the Inktense paints, but nothing exciting happened really. They both mixed and interacted just fine with each other. Even though I'm not really comparing these two palettes to each other, I still thought it would be fun to see them side by side by doing two similar paintings. I will also use these two palettes in the same painting a little further into the video, so stay tuned for that. And I thought that the Graphitint paints, they reminded me of crystals, so I made a girl with crystals growing out of her. Since it is a muted palette, I made it a little more, not sad, but a little more toned down, I suppose. The Inktense palette, it is more bright and colorful, so I made a mushroom lady with a little more bubbly and cheerful energy. Here we have both of them inked and ready, starting with the Graphitint set and the Crystal Lady. This set doesn't really contain any skin tones, but I mixed the sandy yellowish color and a little bit of red, and I got somewhat close to a skin tone. I added more red for the cheeks, ears, nose and shoulders just to make her look a little more alive. I did mix a lot of colors for this piece, especially for the skin, and they worked just fine to mix. However, I did notice a little bit of separation in the paints in the mixing palette when the paints had been sitting for a while, like the pigments didn't fully want to stay together, but when mixing them together again with a paintbrush, it wasn't that noticeable anymore. I also noticed that when using the paint pans for a while, they started to get this almost cracked and porous texture, and it might be the graphite in the paints causing that, I don't know, but I don't think it affected the paints at all, but I just wanted to mention it. Besides the graphite mixed in with these paints, I couldn't really notice any difference between working with these Graphitint paints and regular watercolors. They apply just the same, but as I mentioned before, you have to keep in mind to not smudge the graphite in the paints with your hand. But I am really into this muted look of these paints. The graphite, it adds a very interesting tone and it brings out the texture of the paper even more. The paints don't really look metallic, but the graphite, it adds a little hint of glitter to the painting when looking at it in certain angles. And even if the paints are more muted, they still look so vibrant and beautiful. The blue and teal that I used for the hair, they are just gorgeous. I definitely think that these paints could be one of my go-to palettes to work with. I think they fit my art and style so well, and I just love how this painting turned out. Next we have the Inktense paints and the Mushroom Lady, and here I mixed the skin tone with a lot of this sandy color, a little bit of brown, red and blue. I am basically doing the same thing as in the previous painting, and these paints applied really smoothly. The paint pans themselves, they don't look very big, like they wouldn't last very long, but I noticed that a little paint really goes a long way. They are so pigmented and they don't need to be primed with water or anything before painting with them to get this rich and creamy consistency. And I didn't have any trouble with layering the paints, even if they lifted up a bit when I did the test before. I think that they are probably more water resistant than normal watercolors anyway. I know that some regular watercolors are a nightmare to layer since they keep reactivating and lifting up themselves, and if that is something that you find annoying, I would really recommend these paints. I didn't have any trouble at all when layering or blending. I mean, just look at the hair, it is such a smooth gradient, and the teal and the green, they are so bright and beautiful. I had so much fun with this palette too, also a perfect go-to set of watercolors. It is funny that I've had this set just sitting around for a few years, ever since I got it in the scroller box, but I never got around to trying it out. It was when I received the Graphitint set when I remembered about this one. But yeah, I have nothing to complain about with this set, to be honest. I truly enjoyed it. Well, one thing that I would change if I could is switching out the lighter purpley blue color to a more sky or cyan blue. The light blue in the set is a little more opaque and pastel-like, you know, like it has been mixed with white almost, and I would prefer a more clear and cooler blue. But yeah, I love how these pieces turned out. When seeing them next to each other, you can really see the different features and qualities of the paints. It is two very different palettes, but I feel like I could use both of them just as much. Let me know which one you like the most. Lastly, I will test both palettes in the same painting. I got a suggestion from my Patreons that I could do the background in the desaturated Graphitint paints, and then the focal point of the painting would be in the bright Inktense paints. So I came to think about a colorful umbrella in the rain, and of course I had to add some cats because why not? I used masking tape to make a border around the painting. I thought it would look nice with some interesting framing. I used the biggest paintbrush that I could find and the Graphitint paints, and I did a wet on wet background, which means that I added water to the paper first and then the paint, which gives a very soft and nice texture. I also used the Graphitint paint for the grass using the same wet on wet technique. I think this is such a cute little illustration, but I actually struggled like for a whole day with the line work for these pieces, and that is why I didn't include the inking process in the video. I had to redo the first two pieces a few times with different pens until I got what I wanted, but I finally settled with the Copic gasenfude brush pen for all of these pieces. I really like the look of the brush pen, and I have become very spoiled by doing line work digitally, but it doesn't really work that well with printed line work and watercolors since the inkjet printer ink isn't waterproof, and I don't know if I could even print on this thick watercolor paper anyway. But when the line work is done right traditionally, it is so satisfying. I really love how all of these pieces turned out. I had such a great time making the art for this video. But yeah, since I made the umbrella so colorful, I made the cats a little more neutral, and I think it worked really well to combine these two palettes, especially if you want more contrast between the saturated and desaturated color tones. And it was so nice to work with watercolors again. I haven't done that in a while, and it is always so relaxing. So yeah, here they are, two lovely watercolor palettes. I can really recommend both of them. I will definitely continue using both of them. I'm so happy I finally tried them out. Let me know which of these pieces that is your favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out my Redbubble store for merch and my Patreon for extra content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I will see you next time. Keep drawing, my happy cats. Bye!